on, guys? Welcome in to the college football show, week 0. Finally back with some college football. Going to go into the sheet here in just a second. Want to go game by game here. I've been going position by position years past. Want to go game by game here. So I think that'll be a little more intuitive for you. Going to break down, all 5 games. Going to try to do this as much as I can this year. Of course, time is a little tight, as you may know if you've been in the Discord for me lately. But going to try to get in here and get as many done as we can this year. Very excited for college football to be back. NFL will be back before we know it. If you haven't joined us, definitely check out the link and give us a shot in the Discord. I'll try to post that free link as well. We have I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We've got a new tool on the sheet that I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit. It's called the Stack tool. And I'll kind of go through how I would use it if I were you all. And we'll go from there. So if any questions, let me know, hit me up in the chat. And I'll try to get to those. It's going to be, of course, every year is tough when you get started, trying to get used to teams, especially in the first couple of weeks when it's kind of big mismatches in some cases, like with USC this week. USC's 31-point favorite, 66 total, 12 points higher implied team total than Vanderbilt, who's second highest. So they're obviously going to be a target, but we'll kind of talk about their situation, and you're going to have blowouts, which could limit starter minutes and things. So definitely something to look out for early in the year. UMass, New Mexico State is 7-point spread. They're the first game up on the slate at 45 total. That's the lowest on the slate. Ohio and San Diego State, 3-point favorites there is San Diego State, 49 total. Hawaii and Vanderbilt. 17.5-point favorite here, but the 56 total. I already mentioned the USC game, and then Louisiana Tech, FIU is the nightcap at a 66 total, 31-point spread. So going to jump right in. I'm going to go position by position, team by team. To get started here. So if you look at, I'm going to go game by game. New Mexico State, 7-point favorite. Right now, if you look at them, I'm struggling. New Mexico State, Diego Pavia. I'm going to start here at quarterback, 7,400, kind of in that mid-tier of quarterback on this slate. Not the first guy that I'm going to look to in my lineups this week, but I think he's very, very in play. 7,400, especially, I've played around with some builds with the cheaper quarterbacks, and it kind of ends up where I leave some salary, which is fine on a week like this, but in a game, against UMass, I think Pavia's rushing upside. We saw last year 508 yards, led the slate at least of guys who were playing, last year in rushing yards on the slate of quarterbacks. 508. We love rushing quarterbacks in college football. I'm not scared of UMass's defense. I can promise you that. Now, New Mexico State's wide. I'm going to jump over to wide receivers. Not something I'm going to target. Cordell David, Jonathan Brady, Bryce Childress. None are any that I'm looking at. Cordell David, you can see how low I have their projection here, and Brady would be the only two that I would even half consider. And if I'm playing Pavia, it's really just because of his rushing upside, not looking to pair him up with anybody. Go to the backfield for New Mexico State. You've got Star Thomas returning, Jamani Jones. Look to be a pretty even split. not really going out of my way to target either one of those guys either. So for New Mexico State, it's more than likely going to be Pavia or pass is where I'm looking at on the slate. On the UMass side, I'm not even going to, this guy's been, Taysom has been around a little bit. He's got injured, transferred in to UMass, not going out of my way to target him as a 7-point underdog on the lowest total. Looking at receivers, there's really only a couple guys that I'm even would ever consider, and I'd have to be playing 20 or more lineups to get to any of these guys. Anthony Simpson would be one. He projects to me as their best receiver, but all these guys are probably just dart throws. Christian Wells transfers in from App State. I'm not expecting really anything from this team. More than likely, I'm not going to touch this team at all. But K'Ron Lynch Adams would be the only other guy, 4,500. If you landed there last spot, no problem with it. 10-point projection there. So those two are really the only ones that I would even consider. But really, as a whole, Pavia is my favorite play. But again, this is the lowest total on the slate. So do with that what you will. As far as ownerships, what we're kind of looking at in this game, I would assume Pavia. Trying to pull some up here, but I'm going to assume that Pavia is going to be the most owned player in the entire game, and it's probably not going to be much. Yeah, Pavia under 20% for sure. Everybody else is in that 5 or lower range is what I'm looking at. So this game's not going to be touched, but it's not one that I want to go out of my way to target. Outside of possibly Pavia in tournaments, if I have that extra salary to get up there as a pivot. Moving on, next game we've got Ohio and San Diego State. So the quarterback battle there, you've got Curtis Rourke returning after injury tore his ACL last year, and you've got Jalen Maiden. Two guys who I think will get – let me pull up ownership on this one. I would assume they're going to get some decent ownership, both of these guys. Yeah, I would say both around that 15 to 20 range for Maiden and Rourke. I think that's a little low for Maiden. I like Jalen Maiden a little more than Rourke. He's got the rushing upside. Now, Rourke can run the ball, don't get me wrong, but I honestly believe coming off this injury in a kind of a short time frame since, was it December last year, that Rourke went out late in the year, and he's already returning. I don't see him with as much rushing upside as he might have had early last year, or maybe even later this year if he gets even more healthy. So Jalen Maiden and San Diego State is the side that I'm going to prioritize here. But again, this is almost like a Pavia situation in that at receiver, if you look at San Diego State, I don't really have much of anybody I want to play here either. Philip Wesley has been a guy that's got talked up in camp, 4,600. You could go there. Shaw 52. Just none of these are doing anything for me. I would definitely not double stack, and we'll get to that on the stack tool in a minute, but I'm definitely not double stacking this team if I do play Maiden. May play a guy like Wesley, but honestly might have to be playing 20 lineups to even get to him. San Diego State backfield is looking like a pretty even split between Ken Christian and Cam Davis. Not really one that I'm interested in either. Moving over to the other side with Ohio, they've got Say Bangura returning, but he will have a little more competition from O'Shawn Allison, who was the lead guy before last year when he got hurt. Now he returns. Bangura would be the GPP option for me here. I think he's decent, a little higher price than I would like to get to. My favorite play on the Ohio side is going to be receiver. A guy we played quite a bit last year was Wigluss, 7,100. I think he could get peppered with targets again here. They return a lot of the same faces, so Wigglus was a guy who shined when Curtis Rourke was under center last year, and he kind of faded towards the end of the year as he got hurt. So Jacoby Jones, Miles Cross will certainly mix in, but I like the upside here with Wigglus. He's a guy that you could see 10 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown or something. He's just got that target volume upside there. So that's kind of where I'm at on this game. Really like Jalen Maiden, Rourke for GPPs if you like to go to that side, and you're higher on that side than I am, just because of, again, it's the rushing upside for me that gives Maiden the edge. Wigglus would be my favorite skill position play in the entire game, and then that you could mix in Jacoby or Miles Cross, but I would have to be playing Rourke if you were doing that. Bangura, definitely a secondary GPP option. As far as ownership for the rest of those guys, not going to be very owned. Bangura might get a little bit of ownership. Wigglus, I think, is going to be fairly low for what he is expected to do as well. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate to USC. Again, not a whole lot outside of those names in ownership in this game. So going to be very condensed as far as where the ownership's coming from. It's going to go to this Hawaii Vanderbilt game a little bit more, but then it's really going to condense on USC and then Louisiana Tech and FIU. So we'll get to those. Hawaii and Vanderbilt, you've got AJ Swan and Braden Shager. Not going to go to either one of those guys here. You could make the case to go probably to a Swan would be my first guy. I think Vanderbilt does put up quite a bit of points here, but I just don't see going to him. If you want to get different, though, in GPPs, I don't think he'll be very owned. Let's see here. He should not be very owned at all. Yeah, he's looking very low, definitely under 10%. There are going to be a couple pieces that people are going to gravitate toward, but I want to first off talk about this backfield for Vanderbilt, where we did get the depth chart shows Patrick Smith, Gillespie, then Alexander. Not really buying that it's not more of an or situation on that depth chart as we usually see with a lot of colleges, but here especially, Alexander is the newcomer, a guy that I think could take over the backfield by the end of the year. Gillespie and Smith are a little more established. I think we see a pretty even split, but if they get up a lot here against Hawaii, I could see Alexander getting more work than the other two guys later in this game as they try to work him in, get him some reps early in the year here. Patrick Smith is a fine play. All these guys are pretty favorably priced. Smith looks to get the most ownership. Alexander going to be a fourth of the ownership of Patrick Smith. That's where the GPP in me comes out, and I lean Alexander. In the receiving game, one of the chalkiest pieces on the slate for Vanderbilt, and with very good reason, is Will Sheppard, third priced on this team and first projected, as you can see. $5K, way too cheap. Probably going to be 50, 60% owned, something like that. Definitely makes sense. You can go to Skinner, McGowan, Quincy Skinner, Jaden McGowan in GPPs if you wanted to play Swan, play Sheppard, and two of those guys, Sheppard and Skinner or McGowan. You could take a shot on a guy like McGowan or Skinner and as just a pivot in a lineup, but I don't like the idea of paying $500 or $1,400 more for just less targets more than likely and less upside. So Sheppard is going to be one of the top plays. He's definitely one of the first guys in a cash game lineup for you this weekend. So Sheppard definitely the top play for me on this Vanderbilt side, and then behind him would be one of the backfield. And again, in GPPs, I lean towards Cedric Alexander, even though he's listed third on the depth chart. Moving over to Hawaii, we have another one of the top projected on plays in Kylan Hines, who came out as one on the depth chart. Looks to have that job locked down. 4,700 is just way too cheap. He's another guy that kind of comes preloaded in your cash lineups. Him and Shepard in this game will be very popular. See no reason to get away from that unless you're just getting crazy in GPPs. So I'll have quite a bit probably of Tylen Hines as well. And then on the other side, or in the receiving game for Hawaii, they sound like they're going to get more back to the run and shoot, fast-paced offense. So you could take a shot on this game. Hope that's the case. Hope this goes even more back and forth than it's projected. Poafili Ashlock, and a couple of these guys, Chucky Hines, Koali Nishigaya, all project decent for 3K men play, but I'm not sure that you need 3K men on this slate. They're all going to be low on. They're all cheap. They're all decent. But the problem is, do you need it? Do you have money to spend somewhere? Maybe you can find it. So I think they're in play in GPPs. Not sure that you need that in cash games though. On that side, moving on to USC. And San Jose State. Caleb Williams, again, would be the third guy that we've got to on this slate that pretty much comes preloaded in a cash or optimal building lineup. Massive projection here, looking to back up a Heisman campaign. I definitely think he comes out strong here. But, man, I mean, he's going to, in cash games, he's going to be 100% on. And if he's not, then that's just a mistake. So 9,900, there's lots of value. The pricing's soft on the slate, so I see no reason not to play Caleb Williams in pretty much any format. On the other side, Cordero is decent as well. You could play him. He's got some rushing upside. He, 265 on the ground and 9 touchdowns last year. If you wanted to do a little game stack, I wouldn't hate it. I'm a little lower probably than the field. I don't know if many people are going to San Jose State, but I know early in the week it kind of got talked about as the game stack that people wanted to do to give Caleb Williams a little bit of push. Go to the Cordero side as well with him. I would say that if I'm playing Cordero, you got to for sure play Caleb Williams and probably just stack up this game. I don't see any way that if Cordero and another couple guys from San Jose State do well, USC is going to absolutely smash. It looks like Cordero is going to be low owned. Let's see here. Yeah, fairly low owned in that 10 to 15 range. All right. Moving on, we have sorry, I lost my place. So moving on to the backfield for, man, this is a tough one. USC's backfield has just been kind of an up in the air type of thing. Austin Jones, Marshawn Lloyd, looks like they're going to kind of split work. Austin Jones came out as 1A on the depth chart. I think you can go to him. 16 projection versus 15, pretty much no difference. I like Jones a little more than Lloyd. His upside a little more. So if you want to go there, he's going to be pretty popular. Again, you need somewhere to spend money on the slate. And I think Jones is fine to do that. In the receiving game, this is one of the most important topics on the slate, I think. If you look at this, receiving group, Dorian Singer transfers in from Arizona, top projected play, top projected guy for them on the season. Gonna probably smash, but man, there are so many guys. Mario Williams, Taj Washington, Brennan Rice, Zachariah Branch, a 5-star, Kyron Hudson, who was actually ahead of Brennan Rice on the depth chart. You got so many guys that there's so many mouths to feed. It's going to be tough for any of these guys to just smash, even if they're scoring 50 points. It might be hard if you get a couple rushing touchdowns from, a mix of 3 or 4 touchdowns are a rushing by Caleb Williams, a rush by Marshawn Lloyd, a rush another rush by Caleb Williams, a pass to Austin Jones. Well, if it's not directly to a couple of these guys, they could bust. And I like the idea of just playing one of these in a lineup, maybe even none. Maybe play Caleb Williams naked, take him and Austin Jones or something. I really like the idea of going a little. I think that's going to be contrarian. It looks like Singer is going to be pretty popular. The rest of these guys aren't coming in at much ownership though. So if you want to take a shot on some of them, like a Kyron Hudson, who projects decently for 4K, yeah, go for it. I'm not saying don't make that a rule or anything to only play one, but I kind of like the idea of only playing one. And some of the handbills that I've played around with, I can see doing that because you've got other good receivers. You've got one that we'll get to in the next game, actually two, that I really like. You've got Singer. You've got Will Shepherd in the last game for Vanderbilt. So you've got a lot of good receiving options that if this does get spread around, you can definitely get away with only playing one. But again, they're some of the best plays on the slate, 50-point implied total. So definitely understand the play there. Switching over to the other side, San Jose State. One that I want to look out for is Justin Lockhart. Everything I read coming into the week was that he was very, very questionable. It looks like, as the farther we go, it looks like he's going to give it a shot, but I could be wrong. That's some news that we need to look out for. If you do want to run back, if you're playing two receivers for USC, I would more than likely have a run back, or maybe do that Cordero, game stack that I was talking about. But Ross is decent. Nick Nash is the transferred over from quarterback to wide receiver, so they could get him mixed in with a lot of different packages. But Lockhart, I'm not going to play Lockhart even if he plays. And if he does, I'll probably stay away from this receiving game. In the backfield, they return Kyrie Robinson. Quayle Conley comes in. I think him and Bates will mix in a little bit, but it's Robinson's job at least early in the year. But again, not something I'm going to pay $6K for going out of my way with a 17-point implied total on this slate. So that's that one. Moving over to the last game, FIU, Louisiana Tech, and then I'm going to talk about the stack tool and get out of here. FIU, Grayson James, and Hank Bachmeier, who transfers in from to Louisiana Tech from Boise State. Maybe gets the new beginning. They're going to be very pass heavy. So Bachmeier is going to be, I think he's the second highest projected on the slate with just the system that he's in and what we're looking at as far as matchup and things. He's going to be, massive chalk, 40 to 50%. So that's going to be the starting point in cash more than likely for people is Bachmeier and Caleb Williams, kind of fill in the rest of them that I was talking about from there with Shepherd and, Tylen Hines and a couple of these guys. But Bachmeier, 5,800 is just too cheap. And if you move to this backfield for Louisiana Tech, another guy that I'm really interested in is Charvis Thornton. Marcus Crosby is, by all accounts out. Tyree Shelton is very questionable, but it looks like he might give it a shot. But he'll definitely be limited. So that just leaves, Thornton in this backfield. Might get some mix in from Moody and Willis, but they're not going to. This is a conference game for Louisiana Tech. They're not going to just go and trust. They would rather not probably have to trust Thornton, to be honest. But that's where they're at. They're not going to go, I don't think, anywhere past that. So Thornton's, again, going to be one of the highest projected plays, probably 50 to 70% on, somewhere in that range in most contests. So I understand it. But again, the cash build almost builds itself for you this week if you've listened to this entire show. Louisiana Tech, another guy that's going to be very popular. Probably 3 Louisiana Tech guys in a cash lineup makes a lot of sense this week. Smoke Harris and Cyrus Allen are two very good plays. Smoke Harris, more of the reception, high upside as far as or high floor with receptions and targets. Going to have a lot of those, whereas Cyrus Allen is more of the downfield threat, bigger play guy for GPPs. Looking at similar ownership for both of those, 900 price difference. I lean Smoke and cash and maybe Cyrus and GPPs. True Edwards is another guy, one of those cheap 3K men plays that projects pretty well. So you could go there as well. Those three are definitely all in play. If you need the 3K, again, I talked about that a little bit earlier where I'm not sure that you need it. But he'll be one of the more popular down there at the bottom. So that's where I'm looking at. Louisiana Tech's in a good spot. They got, 4 very good plays, possibly 5 if you include Edwards. But all those guys are in play. And if you want to get a little different, you can look at the other side, which I think will be, of course, lower owned. Grayson, James, Chris Mitchell is going to be his number one guy, 5,900. I'm fine with him as part of a game stack. If you're coming back on the other side and you want an FIU piece, you can definitely go there. Dean Patterson would be my number 2 at 4,300. Eric Rivers is another guy who's projecting pretty well down at the bottom at 3K. So there's a few options down there that I don't know if you need any of them. And if you move into the backfield for FIU, you're going to close it out with Shamari Lawrence, who was in my placeholder in the flex spot early in the week when I was just playing around with Bills, and I definitely think he's in play. Louisiana Tech, not good against the run. Let's just put it that way last year. Maybe they've made some slight improvements, but I'm willing to find out with Shamari Lawrence, who should lead it, might get some mix in from Antonio Patterson. But Lawrence would definitely be my favorite play on the FIU side as a run back. So I could see in cash or GPPs having 4 from this late game as a little hammer coming in. So don't hate that idea. So that kind of closes out the game by game, team by team deal that I wanted to go through. Now I want to switch over to our stack tool. And kind of go through what exactly is this, how do you use it? How do I find it useful? And just to start out with, you've got team info. So kind of like we have on the matchups tab, opponent pass defense rank and rush defense rank for their opposing defenses. And then you've got the spread, you've got the projected points for the team. Quickly see what type of spot is the team in as a whole. And then, I'm going to skip this part right here for now. But what I've done out on the end is you've got, the quarterback, his price projection and point per dollar. What is his point per dollar with that projection? And then for the wide receivers, the top 4 projected receivers for that team in a point per dollar perspective on the slate. So just for example, at the top, Louisiana Tech, you've got, Smoke Harris, Cyrus Allen, True Edwards, Kyle Maxwell. You've got all 4 of them in a row. So college football is one that a lot of times I don't even double stack. I kind of like going with one stack, especially in the fact that we got 2 quarterbacks in most weeks with the super flex. But what this tool does is that if you want to look at double stacks, you can do it, but you can also look at, what is the best, singular stack. If I just wanted to play Smoke Harris or Cyrus Allen, well, how do they project? And it's identically right here from a point per dollar perspective at 2.3. So that's kind of how you could, if you wanted to use a tiebreaker or just kind of look at, is there one guy that's way ahead of the others on his team, like Will Shepard, 2.6 versus 1.3. He's double as good of a play as McGowan, and then Skinner is 1.6. So you can see, Shepard is one of the, if you were playing AJ Swan there, and you wanted to just play one, Shepard is by far and away the number 1 point per dollar play at the receiver position for Vanderbilt. You can do that for every team. And then what this does here, and I've got them labeled as wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, and that translates over to these stacks here. So wide receiver 1, 2, this is if you played the number 1 and 2 receiver together. What is that combination price? What is the projection? What's the point per dollar? So with Louisiana Tech, that would be Smoke Harris, wide receiver 1, and Cyrus Allen 2. And so on and so forth for wide receiver 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 2 and 3, all the combinations of those as two-man stacks together. And then how does that, come out from a point per dollar perspective? This column here, H all the way over to J, picks out what is the best point per dollar for that team specifically. So, for example, Cyrus Allen plus True Edwards projects from a point per dollar perspective the best of any combination for Louisiana Tech. And most of that's, of course, because True Edwards is 3K, but 2.73 versus 2.7 for Cyrus Allen and Smoke Harris. So it might make a little more sense to play. And they're the top projected point per dollar by quite a bit on the slate. So if you're playing Bachmeier and you want a double stack, it might make sense to go Cyrus Allen and True Edwards over Smoke Harris and Cyrus Allen and save a bunch of salary. You can easily compare, how much you're going to save there, 14.5 versus 18.1. You can move that down to the next one, actually, because all the USC receivers are pretty highly priced. Dorian Singer and Brandon Rice project as the best point per dollar, and they're pretty expensive as well at $23,800. So a nice little tool there, and I'm always going to keep this sorted by what's the best stack and what is the point per dollar ranking there. So you can definitely see some of these I'm never going to double stack. Pretty much from here down for sure, I would never double stack, and more than likely, in this range, I'm not going to double stack either. So if you have any questions about that, hit me up in the Discord. If you have any things that you want to see on that sheet, if you want to see some highlights or something like that on that sheet, let me know. I can try to work whatever in, and we can kind of go from there and adjust through the year. I'm open to making changes at any time, so feel free to reach out and give me some feedback on that sheet. So that'll do it for today. Week 0 tomorrow night. Good luck to everybody. I'll have full top targets up on that tab before the slate locks tomorrow, and I'll also have a core. I don't have that tab posted on here yet, but I'm going to add a core tab out here as well, beside of the stack tool and the top targets. So good luck to everybody this week. Let's get off to a good start this college football season.